and welcome to this tutorial all about how to create an image just like Shepard Fairey's image of Obama, which is this red and cream and blue coloured image here on the right. So what you need to do first is to make sure you have an image, and I would like you to use one of the portraits of yourself that we took at the beginning of term, which are in the SharePoint Students folder. So you need to have your one downloaded. You should be able to download it from there and put it onto the hard drive of whatever computer you are working on. I have one here and I've chosen to do Stephen today because that's the wrong one, sorry, because he is seems to have one which is rather similar to Obama's pose there. I would like you to have a 3/4 view to the camera, not a profile one if you can find one of yourself like that, and it does have to be yourself. Right, so what you need to do now is you need to go on the web and you need to basically go to a website called Photopea, and I have got it here somewhere. Let me just see. Here we are. And the reason why I'm asking you to use photopea.com rather than pixlr.com, which is what we have been using, is Photopea has a function that we need for this particular project that Pixlr doesn't have. Photopea is going to help you anyway get more used to industry standard software like Photoshop. So it's probably a good thing that we transition to this now anyway, but you won't find it too different from Pixlr. What we have here is when you first put in photopea.com, photo and then P as in PEA.com, you might get some kind of flash screen asking you to look at their templates. Just try to turn that off. And you don't even need to create an account, although you will find that you do need to once you want to save it. So you can just literally launch straight in. We want to open from the computer because we want to just open from that file that we want to use, which is your JPEG image, hopefully. So we're going to do that. You might need to rotate the image, in which case you would just go to image, transform, and then rotate, whichever way you need to do it. Sometimes if you do need to make it smaller, I mean, you shouldn't do, but if you do, you can actually go to image size and do that from there, but I don't think you will be needing to do that in this particular, if you're opening it from the photograph. Okay, so hopefully you've got your photo like that. As always, I like to create a copy just in case I make a mistake. So you will see here in the layers panel, and if you can't see the layers panel, you go to window and make sure layers is ticked. I have a nice big computer screen here, but if you are on a smaller one, you can actually drag this out and, whoops, you used to be able to do that. Okay, maybe not. But you can sort of play around with what you can view. You don't really need to view swatches or history, for example, or channels or paths. It's really layers that you're interested in. You can see that they all have, if you click on them, they will give you different options. Now, you see here in the layers that it's done something rather complicated here, which is give you these different depth maps. We're not interested in them. Just ignore them, keep them switched off so we can't see them. So this little eye is the only one we want. But we're going to make a little copy. So we can either right click on that layer and go duplicate layer. I'm going to turn off the bottom one. That's just in case I run into problems. And I'm going to just make sure I'm clicked on this main copy of the layer. In fact, I'm even going to usually you can, rename it. Suddenly can't remember whether you spell your name with a V or a PH, Stephen, so we'll keep it as a PH for now. Right, first step we need to do is we want to get rid of the background. Okay, so in order to do that, basically we're going to use our magic wand. Now the reason I took all these photos of you against a kind of fairly plain background was because I knew that at some stage we would be needing to cut out the backgrounds. And this can be quite tricky if the background is very busy, and there are different ways to do this. You have probably played around with the magic wand tool before, and there are different ways of cutting things out, but it can get tricky when you get to hair, especially Stephen's hair. So what we want to do is literally keep as much hair as we can and cut out the background. So we're going to go to magic wand, and we're going to see, you can see I've got the marching ants there. I want to get rid of them. Anytime you want to get rid of the marching ants, you press Control and D. Okay. On a Mac, if you're using a Mac like me, it's actually Command and D, but for PC users, it is Control and D. D for deselect. Okay. So we're on our magic wand, and we are going to just click in the area around his face. Now, if I was to just go, okay, so this is the area that has been selected, delete it, great. We can see transparent pixels behind. That's what we want. But there's more efficient ways of doing it. If I go to deselect those again, I have something here called tolerance, and I can fiddle about with that tolerance to make it more or less sensitive, because what it's doing is it's looking at the pixels it's looking at the pixels that are the same color as the ones that you selected wherever you pressed click. Also, we want it on contiguous. If we didn't have it on contiguous, it would be selecting anything, and it might select something in his face. We don't want to delete bits of his face. So, for example, if I clicked here, it's a little bit risky. It's taking things out of his neck, chunks out of his ear. We don't want that. So we want it on contiguous, because what contiguous means is that it is going to select the pixels that are right next to the area that you're selecting. Okay, so what we want to do is basically go around deleting the background. So we can do it in small chunks like this, making sure each time that we're not getting anything important of his face. Okay, now if I could zoom in a little bit, I'll show you what it's doing here. See, we've still got some bits here that we'll need to go up and go and clean afterwards. Right, let me just zoom out. Sometimes if you're using a laptop with a trackpad, you can just stretch your two fingers apart and it will zoom out for you, which I don't have that right now. Okay, so I've got a bit selected there. I'm not interested in having that selected anymore because I've already deleted that. So I'm just going to deselect. I'm going to go back to my magic wand tool, which is over here. If you hover over it, it will tell you the name of the tool. Now, what you can do also is change the tolerance, as I said. So if I went down to like a tolerance of 3 down here, and you see it's not really selecting, it's very sensitive. I can kind of drag it a bit and it will select some more, but that's a very slow way of working. You see how it's not selecting these upper pixels that are darker because it doesn't think that's the same area. This bit, by the way, is the most difficult bit you'll have to do in the whole tutorial. So actually I want the tolerance, let's try 24, for example, back over here. Okay, it's getting a bit, but there you see it's taking a chunk of his face. I think I'll see what it's got there. Yes, that's quite good. It's still a little bit slow. Taking that bit, taking that bit. I'm going to have loads of little bits there that I don't want, little flecks of pixels there. So that's because we're on the tolerance of 3. Why don't I put it back to about 18? Press return, make sure I'm still on contiguous. And now I'm getting bigger chunks. But what I can also do is if I hold Shift down when I've got some selected, I can actually add to the selection. So I'm now holding Shift down. It's a good level of tolerance. So I can come back in with my, oh yeah, it's actually getting them now. I can come back in with an eraser later and get those last few bits. There's some here that I want to get. And before I mess it up, I'm going to just delete those bits. Hurrah. Okay, so now I need to, if you were trying to erase anything now and you had an area selected, it would only want to erase in the area that you've got selected. So always remember to deselect to get back to the beginning again. Deselect would be either select and then deselect, or it would be Control and D together. Right, so we're still on the magic wand. We're going to do this side now. So it's beginning to get these, okay, that's because I've got my tolerance level right. So I'm going to just try and get that bit there. I'm going to try, if I pressed on black and I got, oh no, you know, I don't want to delete his hair, you can go either edit, undo, and it will go back a step. You could go to your history and you can see the last few steps that you did over here on the right, and you could just click on that to go back that number of steps. Or you can press Control Z and that will undo the last step that you did. And the more you press Control Z, the more you go backwards. Right, I'm still getting these bits here. So I'm going to get that bit, just get that bit. Doing it quite neatly now. And good. Now I'm going to delete. Great. And just zoom in a bit here. Control D. Just get these last few bits, otherwise our final result's going to look a bit mad. What I'll do now is Control D select, make sure I've got nothing selected, and I might just go in with my eraser. So if you hover over somewhere around here, here is the eraser. Not interested in the background eraser, just the eraser tool. And you can see that I can start to delete some of the bits that I don't want. So you could go in that way to do the detail, using your zoom tool as well. If you think your brush is too small, you can increase the size of it. Obviously, I can't really do detail very well with a big brush, but what I can do is the bits that I think are, yes, like here. Over here, there were a few where I didn't select very well. But then as soon as I get to, over here is to have a good brush over here. That's pretty good. You can see here that his cheek is a little bit affected there, so I'm just going to try and smooth that out, although you won't really, if it's not too bad, you won't see that in the final thing because it will be zooming out. Here we've got a bit of a mess to clean up, so we're going to do that. It's quite important for the next step that we do this. You can see I just took a chunk out of his shoulder there, but it wasn't a big enough chunk to be worried about. There's a bit of hair there, that's all right. Yeah, generally it's okay. I mean, professionals would go back in and do these areas of hair. I'm just going to try and get a few bits like this. Press Shift to add to it. Just these big chunks here. Just to try and, you could spend hours doing this, to be honest. So what you want to do is have a fairly neat result. Let's just delete those. So they've all gone deleted now. And when I zoom out using my zoom tool, and I'm also pressing on the Alt key to zoom out, I still need to deselect that. I'm pretty happy with that result for now, I think. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is the step that we couldn't do in Pixlr. But it's the step that it's a quite advanced step, and it's basically similar to posterizing, but it's called vectorizing. And we're going to go to Image, Vectorize Bitmap. Make sure you're on the layer, by the way, that you want to be on. Image, Vectorize Bitmap. Now, I've just previously done this, so it's a lot quicker, but it might take your computer a bit of time. Also, another and slightly annoying thing is it doesn't give you these options up here until it's already done it, and the default is 20. We don't want 20, we want about 5, maybe 6. We want to reduce noise, and we also want to segmentize. So make sure that is clicked. And it takes a little bit of time. You think it hasn't worked, and it is just thinking about it. So it is a slightly frustrating process, but the segmentize is quite useful to just smooth out those edges a little bit. Okay, and then we say okay. And there we have a kind of different sort of posterized. We've got these different tones going on, just like we did when we were posterizing. But this is a slightly more complicated version. It's actually very cool. We don't need all these functions right now. But for example, you can say, okay, so if I wanted to select the different parts and colors, you would be able to do that. So if I go to the select button, so in a minute we're going to do this, but what I would like you actually to do is just to merge it all. So we are going to actually select all of those layers. In fact, you could just select Steve and copy, and what you could do is go flatten image. Okay, that will make it a lot less complicated. And now you can see that we've actually got a background again. You can see where I didn't delete little bits of his hair, so I could go back and do that. We've also got a locked layer, so just be aware of that. So what I did there was I just went on that layer of Stephen, and I just right clicked and I pressed merge layers or flatten layers, flatten image. It can be either one. And there we just get all of it together, so it's not so complicated anymore. Right, we just want to get rid of the background again. So let us, in fact, I'm just going to tidy it up by going to the eraser tool. Just get this bit here, since we don't want the background in the end, so we're just going to slightly tidy that, slightly tidy this, slightly tidy that. Okay, so now we're just going to go to the magic wand. We're on the right layer. We're going to select it. It's all lovely and white, so it's very easy. And I'm going to delete that. You can see it's on contiguous, so it's only done the white pixels that are next to each other. So that's why it hasn't done these ones up by his hair, and it also hasn't done these ones around to the side. So if I tick contiguous again and click it again, it will be it will select all the whites, because we don't want any other white. And I go Control D to deselect. Good. Right, so what I'm going to show you is that we are making something like this, okay? And yes, Stephen, I've put woke there, but that's only because I wasn't really thinking very much. You can say if you disagree with it or agree with it. We've got to get from this on the left to this on the right. And in order to do that, we need to use exactly the same colours as our friend Shepard Fairey. Okay, so luckily I have managed to obtain those colours, but it's not that difficult to get them, because all you do is you use your colour picker, because every single colour has a has a code, which I'm now going to show you. Here we are. So here we have the colours that he uses, Shepard Fairey that is. And what we're going to do is replace all of these browns for each one of these colours. And then I'm going to show you how to do the half-tone pattern, which is what this is called, which is 2 colours. So what we need to make sure we do is, first of all, we need to see down here where you have the 2 colours, which is the front colour and the back colour, background colour, foreground colour, background colour. And we want to change them. So what we need to do is double click on the black. Okay, just going to get that up there. And in here where it says hex code, let me just make this a little bit smaller. In here where it says hex code, we are going to put in the code that we have been given here. Let me make this a bit smaller as well, because it's getting in my way. Good, good. The only annoying thing about Photopea and Pixlr is all these adverts, so just try and ignore them. Right, the hex code is the same across all computers. So it should look the same. So I am putting in FBDE, E 8E, FBDE 8E, and if I press OK, I should get it there. See, here it is, FBDE 8E. Okay, doesn't matter whether it's capitals or not capitals. So now we have it here, and it should also go into our little sort of storage facility here. So that's going to be very helpful. And what we need to do then is we've got our beige ready. Now all we need to do is get our magic wands again and get the lightest colour on our face, which is this one. Now, because I have contiguous unchecked, it's able to select all the areas of that lightest colour. If I had contiguous checked, it would only get one of them. Okay, so we don't want that. We want to uncheck it and select. Okay, and now guess what we do? We go to our paint bucket and we pour in some of this cream colour. The paint bucket is often hidden underneath the gradient tool. So we just have to go find the gradient tool, and there's the paint bucket, and it will then switch around. And sometimes in Photoshop you get a little bucket, so little bucket icon instead of the arrow, but this one doesn't seem to do that. So we just go to one of the areas which we've selected. Oops, we've got contiguous on again, so we don't want that. And there we go. It's funny actually, this is a lot yellower than it is on any of my PCs. Right, next thing we need to do, so we need to deselect that area, because we're not interested anymore. And we need to go to Magic Wands again. And hang on, we need to get our colour ready. So let us go back here. Now we need to type in a new code. Let's go for the light blue. 4F919F. Thank you very much. There it is. And now when we go to our bucket, paint bucket, well, first of all, actually, we need to make sure we've got our magic wands. Go to the next colour, which I would say is this one. Then we go to our paint bucket. Oops, paint bucket. And we've got the blue in the foreground swatch there. And we just click, and there we have the blue. So I'm going to deselect that, Control D. Then I'm going to go and get my other colour ready. By the way, you can always swap colours around by clicking these little arrows here. So I could just go like that, keep the blue there. And click on the white, and then I'm going to go back to my hex code. So you can also find any colour and then look up its hex code. So if you were, for example, telling your friends an exact colour that you wanted them to print for you, you would find it on here, and then, or you could use the colour picker, which is here, and then click on it and it will tell you the hex code. Right, so we are now looking for red, which is E7000A. Return. Okay. Go back to the magic wand. I should think it's this one now, isn't it? Yep. Then we go back to the paint bucket. Our red is ready for us. And there we go. And now we have one more area to do. So we're going to go back to the magic wands. Because we flattened everything down to one layer, it's pretty simple. We don't have to remember to keep making sure we're on the right layer. So that is selecting all the darkest colour there now. And what we're going to do is, whoops, we forgot to get our dark blue ready, which is this one down here, but that's okay. We can just type in 0, 1, 2, 5, 3, and D. Press OK. Then we go to our bucket, and you see it's gone to that nice blue. Did it do it there? I think that is blue. Yeah. Is that blue? Yeah. Okay. Deselect. There is one more thing that I would like to show you. Yeah, so what I want to tell you now is there's another thing you can do. See this stripe effect that you've got here on Obama's picture. I'm just going to show you how to do that. Now, I don't have any actual tones left, so this is where maybe I should have done 6 tones when I was doing the vectorizing the bitmap. But what you can do is, I will show you anyway, go to the magic wand. I'm going to pick the blue area here, so it's obviously still on not ticked on contiguous, and I'm actually going to go copy, copy, and then paste. So hopefully it will come on a new layer. There it is, it's gone right on top of the old layer, but here it is in my layers list. So let's turn this off. So we're going to make this into stripy cream and blue. So we want to get our colours ready. So I've got the light blue already in here. Now, kindly, Photopea has stored the colours, so I know that that's my cream colour. So here I've got my colours ready, cream and light blue. And this is where I'm going to select again with my magic wand. There they all are. Contiguous is unchecked. And then I'm going to go to filter, filter gallery. And then I'm going to scroll down. I've got different effects here, artistic, brush strokes. You can certainly try out any of these, but what Shepard Fairey does, if we're going to be literal and try and make our image look like him, is the halftone pattern here. Now it's going to look a bit weird because we're quite far away from the image, but don't worry. The size, oops. So the size, you can see that I've got some checks going on here. We don't want checks, we want lines. And we want contrast of 50, and we want size of only 1. Okay. And when we're happy with that, we go to OK. And again, we don't need to have it selected anymore, so we can go Control D to deselect. And then we can switch back this on. And you can see that we have a slightly different effect. Now, it does make your eyes go funny. You can see when you go really in that if it was to print, it would all be like this. It's just that computer screen can't quite cope, which is not very good because it's a brand new one. Right, just zoom out. So we are pretty much nearly there. But what I would like to do now is, in order to get a properly finished image, remember we've got to do a border, and we've got to do, actually we're going to put our spray painted words, slogans here. But I'll show you how to do this in type anyway, just because it's a good skill. So first thing we need to do is blend that together. So I'm selecting both of these layers and I'm just going to, well, you can merge them or you can flatten image. Then I am going to go to my move tool, which is here. Now, probably what I want to do is just make this slightly smaller so I can fit a border in. You probably won't have transform controls here at the top ticked. You'll only see this, by the way, if you're on the move button. As soon as you change to a different tool, you get a different load of menus up here. So you need to be on the right menu, on the right tool, which is the move tool, and tick transform controls, and then you see these little handles that you can grab. You need to keep the aspect ratio, so you don't want him stretching and doing all sorts of weird things. You want to hold the shift key down. Oh, I tell you what, it's not doing anything because we are locked. This is locked. So it let us select things, it lets us paint things, but it doesn't let us change the size. So what do we do to unlock it? We just double click and say OK. Hang on, do we? Oh, yeah. Double click the lock itself and say OK. Then we're going to grab these handlebars while pressing the shift key. Otherwise, he's going to stretch around all over the place. So let's have him I notice we've got a background again. It's given us another background. We don't want that, so we'll delete that in a minute. But I'm going to put it so that he's relatively in the middle, a little bit smaller, and the top of his head is at the top of the canvas. And then I'm going to press OK, or you can just take the transform tools off. Back to the magic wand and select the white again, delete the white, don't want that. Deselect so you don't have any marching ants showing. And then what we need to do is just create, like we have here, blue on this side and red on this side. So in order to do that, we're going to create a new layer, which is down here, new layer. You could also go to layer new. And you get your marquee tool, which is just nicely set as a rectangle already. And judge roughly half. You can going to draw a oh, I didn't do that quite well enough. Hold on. A rectangle. There we are. I found it helped to start from the bottom. Okay, and we are going to fill that with some red. So we're going to select that red. It's remembered for us exactly the right red. Go back to the paint bucket and obviously fill that. In a minute we'll be moving this layer behind the other one. So make sure you're doing it on a new layer and not spoiling your piece of art that you've just done. Back to the rectangle again. It doesn't like it. It won't do it if I start off the canvas, so got to start just on the canvas. Over to here, that's about right. And then we are going to swap those around and fill it with blue. Okay, great. Doesn't really matter that there's a little seam because it's hidden. It's going to be hidden behind Stephen's face. So we're going to drag that layer behind or drag the other one on top, whichever you like. And we are beginning to see the resemblance, except it would have been good to have a bit more tone so that I could have done a blue layer. So that's, in hindsight, that's, you know, how it works. You could always go back and maybe smooth these out as well and maybe put some blue in there, but for now let's keep it like this. Now of course, because okay, so this is what we do. It's good to kind of have things go wrong a little bit because then I can show you how to fix them. So we want to be on this layer. We're just going to move Stephen up a bit. Yeah, that's quite okay. See how we can move him around against the background, so that's fine. And what we want to do is just go back to this layer, back over, what was it, around about here, paint some blue into that. And deselect, get the marquee tool, paint some red into this, switch those around. There's my paint bucket, there it is. Okay, so done that. And the next thing we want to do is merge them. So select both those layers and merge them, or flatten the image. And then what we want to do is just create another marquee, and down here we're going to do a dark blue box so that we can put our text in. Like, actually let's make it a bit bigger, and I'm going to also crop it a bit so we don't see this bit of shoulder here. And we're going to get the colour that we want, which is this dark blue, and paint bucket it. What we could do is do this on a new layer. So if you do it on a new layer, it will just make it nice and neat, and then you can sort of merge that afterwards. I'm actually thinking we could actually extend Stephen's shoulder by just paintbrushing a bit of blue in there. So we've got the blue ready. Now this brush size is way too small, so let's make it a bit bigger. If we just do it really carefully, no one will notice, hopefully. Where's my eraser gone? There it is. And see, I can't erase now because I'm not on a different layer, and I did that on the same layer, but that's okay. Go back to my brush, just make it slightly smaller. Just really neatly line that up. This is kind of cheat's way of filling in some gaps. Okay, so now what we need to do is get a text layer. Now when you press the text tool and you click on here, it should give you a kind of cursor. Now the text size is going to be tiny and you'd hardly see it, so you want to make it as big as you can. And we're going to type, what should we type? We'll just stick with the word woke. Sometimes text can be tricky and you want to zoom into it, so and it just loves creating loads of layers that you don't need. So let's just delete that one, so it might be easier to start again. When you click on the text type tool, it creates the layer for you, so the layer just got created. There we go. So it's better when I'm zoomed in. And while I'm here, is it using the color I want? I want this color. Thank you very much. I went to the color up here because when I'm on the text tool, it gives me the color options. Now it doesn't give me any more size options here, but what I can do is actually just grab my move tool and get the transform controls up, and then I can just drag it to the size that I want. Also, you can change the font. I forgot to tell you that. So let me just try and zoom out a bit. So you want it to stretch all the way across. See how the lines have gone thicker? That's not what it's going to look like on the actual thing. It's just the screen sort of trying to cope. And press return, get rid of those. Maybe move it down a little bit. And there we are. We can select all those layers, flatten image. And what we need to do now, let's just check. See, they're all tiny. What we need to do now is, of course, save it. So if you want to save it so that you can keep it as a PSD file with all that information, you can save it as a PSD. And if you want to export it, I would export it as a JPEG. And it says what quality that you want to save it as. We kind of try 70%, 75% at least, because we are going to want to print these and we want them to be as good as possible. So we're just going to go save, and it asks me where I want to save it. And we're going to say wherever you want on your computer, but remember you have to upload it to your file in the SharePoint. I hope you've managed to follow along. I know it's been a long video, but I think it's worth it when you have managed it.